What's up, fellas? What's up, world? Welcome to another edition of Earn Your Liberation right here at BPM. I'm Jared Ball, joined with my colleagues and comrades, Brother Diallo, Geechee Y'all. What's up, fellas?
Doing well. How are you guys doing?
Doing great.
Good as could be expected. Right on. Feeling good. Good. I'm just checking in with Eugene Puryear, who's set to join us. He'll be here in a couple of minutes. But in the meantime, between time, make sure that you have liked, shared, subscribed, joined, done all of the things. If you can't become a member of the platform or support via Patreon, just like and share and subscribe. All of that is free to you, helps the platform, and don't be stingy, you know. We've updated the signage. I think Geechee raised a good point about our representation in previous efforts to encourage people to support the channel. And we don't want to demean anybody, but in our efforts to make fun of Kamau, we don't want to go overboard to make fun and demean anyone else. So we've updated the signage here. So there it is. Go ahead and find your way to support us. And so what's the latest? What's the latest, fellas? What you want to get to?
I think Diallo was making his plea to be Sierra's next boyfriend by supporting her. So I'm curious to hear more about that.
Yeah,
he won't in.
I just thought that it's just weird to me. You know, I've been kind of following the Manosphere and their ongoing hysterics around Sierra and her ball chasing husband. And what it represents, it's wild to me how much passion it provokes amongst the alpha males and the traditionalists in the crowd about how this brother dotes over this unworthy woman and how so many alpha males insert themselves vicariously in that relationship and concern themselves with her worthiness or unworthiness. It's really crazy to me. So it's not really about Sierra that fascinates me. It's the like I said, the hysterics it promotes amongst the Manosphere. It's insane.
Well, you all talked a little bit about it. Yeah, go ahead. My bad. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I've been hearing stuff I didn't even know. Like somebody said that people are mad because Russell treat Sierra better than Toby Anigwe or whatever his name is. Toby treats fat. So his you know about the conscious rapper Toby Anigwe or Anigwe, whatever his name is?
Yeah, the guy that has those color coordinated rap videos.
Yeah, supposedly his wife Fat
was on a first name basis with Beyonce.
yeah. His wife Fat was chasing him and pursuing him, and he like was mean to her. Like, I really didn't like you like that. He threw her in the friend zone. So pretty much like people saying they mad because Russell treat Sierra better than Toby treat his wife.
Right, which is weird as hell. We talk about pocket watching, and I guess we could call that, I don't know, cock watching. It's just weird as hell how and the thing is the characteristics of an alpha male, or however these brothers identify, to be stoic, to be, you know, non-emotional, and all, and the things they talk about when they call women, black women, these females are all in their emotions. They're not rational. They caught up in all this fluff and unimportant culture shit, and then they turn around and they act like fangirls. They act like groupies. So it's really weird. I think it's centered around anti-blackness. I think they're projecting their hostility towards black women onto this. It gets to play out their anti-black woman fantasy of unworthiness, especially single mothers, black women that don't behave like Victorian Christian values, covered from neck to knee, and you know, knees and neck covered up. So I think people's in that manosphere, Kevin Samuel's bastard offspring, I think that in that sphere, it says more about the men who go on and on about this unimportant thing than it says about actual. What's the ball chaser's name?
I can't even remember.
Russell Wilson.
Russell Wilson.
Russell
yeah.
Wilson.
I think it says more about the men that are somehow provoked to any type of strong emotion. It says more about them than it says about Russell Wilson and his relationship with his wife. And it's
so
just it's weird as hell.
Real quick on your point about Kevin Samuels, I saw my favorite white guy platform, R.M. Brown, made a joke the other day about Tim Pool being the replica of the replica of the replica of a Jordan Peterson, I think. Make it, talking about the movie Multiplicity. I don't know if anybody ever remembers that movie with Michael Keaton, who replicates himself and replicates himself and replicates himself so that he can be everywhere doing all these different things. Oddly enough, I met the writer of that screenplay who came to my undergrad for a workshop years ago. But anyway, and the point is that each replica of each replica is sort of a lesser quality version. It's always some devolved version of the original. And so like we're getting that of even something horrible like a Kevin Samuels, like his offspring are these devolving quality replicas of even that, looking to replicate themselves to fill that void. Anyway, I actually think
I think
kind of
what I've observed
cold line too, to call somebody, man, you just a replica of a replica. You a devolved replica. No, my bad. Go ahead.
What I've observed is that old school anti-blackness and self-hatred doesn't really fly anymore. In terms of there was genuinely a perspective where black people was like, oh, black people ain't no good, or these black women ain't no good. So a lot of self-hate and self-rejection is now portrays itself as critique of misbehavior or critique. Well, I guess it always has, but it's reached kind of new levels in the social media arena. So a lot of times where people want to say hateful and anti-black things, they want it to be masked, or they want to give themselves the cover of I'm just making a commentary about the condition. So I think a lot of brothers that hate this Sierra scenario and this Sierra situation, and they personally get upset. Russell Wilson don't have no problem with what this woman is wearing. This woman has literally no direct or indirect connection to you, but you mad for Russell Wilson. You hurt for Russell Wilson. You embarrassed for Russell Wilson. And this vicarious, like so many of these misogynists are in a vicarious relationship with Sierra and fantasizing about what they will or won't allow her to do, or just fantasizing about what she is or isn't worthy of, when you shouldn't be invested in any way. It's just.
But we've buried the lead though, because first of all, I didn't know about any of this until I was watching your show the other night. Shout out to Skip Coon, who first of all, I don't know what one of my favorite rappers is doing on your show, so I don't know how that happened to begin with. But the burying of the lead,
I've been trying to convert him to atheism. And
me too. So I used to think he stopped calling me because I confessed. I came out as an atheist, and he was like, and I remember he asked me, he's like, "You were atheist," and then he never really got into it with me, and I was like, "Oh man, my favorite rapper doesn't want to talk to me." So I'm with you on that, but we've buried the lead that because what I kept hearing all throughout the show was Skip Coon in his own brilliant lyrical way saying, Jared and Geechee are right. Jared and Geechee are right.
Exactly.
Jared and Geechee are right.
Yes.
And checking you on your engagement. Oh man. It was, fortunately for you, our guest is here. So we don't have to.
Wow. Word. Okay. We'll circle back. Here, I'm gonna start.
No, shout out to that wow
I
too
got
from
a pen.
Stacy on.
I got a pen. So whenever you do this slick shit, I'll just put a pen.
Put a pin in it.
Yeah. So I keep one on my desk. So I'm putting it right there. So we'll circle back.
Yeah. Put a pin in it.
And Skip is now going to be a permanent co-host of the Rational Radical.
Oh, that's a good idea. That is a very good idea. Right on.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's do this. Let's take just a quick hit break. Come on back and be joined by our guest and get into something serious. Although, anyway, yeah, let's get into let's get into that. Don't go anywhere. Much more coming up right here on Earn Your Liberation. All right, everybody, joining us this morning, you know him, the man, the legend, definitely not a myth and certainly not a myth maker, activist, organizer with Party of Socialism and Liberation, the Answer Coalition. He's a co-host of several programs on Breakthrough News, a longtime comrade and friend of the program. Eugene Puryear joins us. Hoo, 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 hooray, hoo, 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 hoo. Applause, applause, applause. Sound effects. Anyway, thank you, Eugene, for joining us this morning. We appreciate you coming through. I wanted to say first off the top, thank you very much to you and Breakthrough for your support of BPM, showing some solidarity and spreading the word about our censorship. I definitely appreciate it. And I think on behalf of the platform, we appreciate it. So thank you for that. And so let's get into it. So a lot happening tomorrow. Specifically, we wanted to talk about the event here, the march and rally at the White House, not far from where I am, at least in Washington, D.C. But let's talk a little bit about the politics of it. What is the background of it? Who are the organizers? What is it that you want us to know about? And again, welcome.
Well, thanks so much for having me. Very happy to be here. And yeah, it was an honor to have you on, and the least we could do to show some solidarity. If we don't, stick together and stand shoulder to shoulder, I don't know what that quote is. If we'll all hang together, we'll all hang separately. Whatever the exact quote is, we got to stand together.
If we don't stick together, we'll all hang separately. If we don't stand together, we'll hang separately.
There we go. Perfect. So very honored to be here and really appreciate it. So March 18th, 1 p.m. Saturday, that's 1 p.m. Eastern time in front of the White House. We are having the Fund People's Needs, Not the War Machine rally on more or less the anniversary of the Iraq War. It's actually Monday, but we're doing on the 18th in the context of that coming together. So that's why it is this particular weekend, because obviously the endless war machine that's being run by the U.S., we could protest any day. And I think that ultimately is the underlying aspect of why we're doing this event here. I mean, in many ways, the war in Ukraine, the proxy war in Ukraine, NATO raising this proxy war is maybe the most sort of proximate issue in terms of imperial war making here in the United States. But, using that as a pivot point, we want to talk about all the wars, all the sanctions, the drone wars in Africa, the sanctions in Latin America, the nuclear saber rattling in China, where, they want us all to be turned into radioactive ash over Taiwan. Doesn't sound like a great idea to me, but obviously some people are pushing that as, the number one doorway to freedom and liberation in this world, to potentially go into a nuclear conflict with China and or Russia. So, from our point of view, not only is that obviously just terrible for humanity in a nuclear war sense, but the very fact of this imperial war machine is the cause of so much death, destruction, pain on all parts of this globe. I mean, obviously the war in Ukraine is one of the most direct issues that's causing a cost of living crisis around the world. I mean, literally every single country there is, for average everyday working class people are struggling to make their basic day-to-day, week-to-week expenses. Even the United States, 160 million people having at least some trouble making their expenses week to week. So from our point of view, when you look at either working class people here in the United States, when you're worried about your gas prices, we'll lift the sanctions on Venezuela. Whether we're talking about people on the streets of Khartoum who are struggling to buy, their basic bread and their basic medicines, well, all of that's being driven up by the sanctions on Russia, which is related to this proxy war in Ukraine. So we want to start to show how this sense and stand up first and foremost and voice our opposition to these imperial conflicts, to point out how they're draining resources from working class people in every corner of the globe, including right here in the United States, and say we need to change and we need to turn around. So we need to move towards a peaceful solution in Ukraine ASAP. We need to end and lift all sanctions, in all these countries around the world, and just stop this idea of these sanctions regimes. And we need to withdraw these U.S. military presences and their allied adjuncts, if you will, anywhere where they're causing trouble around the world. So we'll be there in front of the White House at 1 p.m. on March 18th to really raise that voice. We're going to march in D.C. We're going to have a second program after that, some of which will be live streamed. But if you really don't want to miss it, be there 1 p.m. March 18th. And I'm with the Answer Coalition, and we're one of 200 organizations that is endorsing.
And if you can't be there, where would this be live streamed? Who's covering that? Is that Breakthrough?
Yeah, Breakthrough News will be likely live streaming as well, working on a couple tech things, but I think it's going to happen. And I think there'll probably be a couple others. I think Code Pink told me they were going to try to live stream, and a few others who are there. So if you follow the Breakthrough News accounts at BT Newsroom, if you follow the Answer Coalition accounts in and of itself on social media, you should be able to pick up that live stream pretty easily.
Right on. So, and fellas, jump in at any point. One question I did want to ask is, I've at one point living in DC, living around DC my entire life. I've either been to or covered, or just so many marches. I've also been part of at one point or another, groups who have been critical of marches for a variety of reasons. From your point of view, what is the value of these kinds of efforts, of marching, of rallying? What do you see?
Yeah, no, well, I think it's a good point. And certainly not in isolation can anything be that effective. But from my point of view, marches, rallies have, a couple different principal functions. First and foremost, I think it's an opportunity for mass education in a way. When large groups of people come together angry about anything, it creates the basis of people asking, well, why are they coming together and why are they angry about something? So I think it's one of the many tools, and one that I think has a special evocativeness to it, because it's masses of people gathering in one place, which is, obviously in the context of our daily lives, outside of like rush hour, right? That doesn't really happen. Certainly people getting together for an explicit purpose that they're not forced to go to. So I think it has the opportunity to raise those issues in a way that they can be raised many other ways, through the media, through different forms of mass engagement with people. But I think a march creates a specific sort of spectacle about it. And I know some people sort of can be down on that, but I think that to some degree, when we look at our society, history in many ways can move based on spectacles in some circumstances. And I think when you look at the politics of revolution historically over time, what you can see is that is oftentimes a major factor, whatever it be, whether we're talking about the Moncada in Cuba, or we're talking about the marches that predated the Russian Revolution, many of which played a significant role in February of 1917, whether we talk about how Black Power came on the scene during the March Against Fear, whether we're talking about the anti-Vietnam War movement and the things we know, or the stylistic choices of the Black Panther Party and how they presented themselves. And so I think being able to put together a protest that is cogent, that is well organized, that brings to it a certain energy, I think offers an opportunity for mass education on the issues that you are bringing together, and to create a physical representation for who you are and what you represent to the rest of the world. When you're just one person online, when you're, just a group that's a nameless, faceless entity, it's, I think easier to caricature or push to the side, or give people some reason why they shouldn't be involved in this thing, which of course, the enemy, the war makers, that's what they want. And I think the most oppressive people hope that no one ever wants to get together with anyone else. But when you can see who people are, and when it might be a little surprising, who people are in terms of the caricatures of who goes out and who marches, I think that in and of itself is a form of education in addition to the issue itself. And then secondarily, I personally feel that it has a huge role in creating a sense of cohesion amongst those of us who care about these things. That you are not alone. When I first started coming to marches in DC, anti-war marches in high school, coming from Central Virginia, not the most conservative area, but certainly not the most, whatever you want to call it, coming to these DC marches, like all the things that people over time start to be like, oh, these things about marches, I thought were amazing. I was like, oh my God, these people are giving me all these newspapers with all this information I've never heard of, and these flyers to these websites that I never knew existed. And there's all these people from around the country who also think the same thing. And that played a tremendously formative role for myself, not only becoming educated, but seeing that there is this whole other world out there of, radical opposition to the status quo, however significant or insignificant it may have been. That was something I was looking for, but maybe didn't even know I was looking for. I was angry and mad, and being able to find something to channel that into was important. So for me, that is maybe the two main reasons. Three, I think sometimes it's just important to stand up and be counted regardless. I've protested like by myself, and I've protested with 350,000 people. So I think there's something to taking your time to go and to do something that also imputes a certain seriousness, because, hey, this is capitalism. Time is money. People have jobs, they have kids, you have hobbies, leisure activities. So if you're taking 2-3 hours to go do something, that's also a sign, I think, of seriousness to people, of how serious you take something, which in and of itself, I think, is its own message.
I appreciate, I really do, appreciate.
So Eugene, I want.
Huh? Oh, as I was saying, I appreciate, you articulating the value of protest, but whenever I think about an action, I think about the countermeasures, and just as we think about how many citizens oppose the war machine, there are many more just rank and file citizens, not decision makers, not leaders, politicians, people within the war machine apparatus who support the military. There was just, and the military's intensive propagandizing of the general public. I think Jonathan Majors just did a pro-war movie. What's it called? That pilot movie,
the
Devotion.
Yes.
Devotion. Like, he's one of the biggest Black rising stars, and every time there's a star on the come up, they do some pro-war propaganda. Will Smith and so many other major U.S., especially Black movie stars do. I mean, they had Rihanna in a pro-war propaganda movie, for the U.S. Navy, and we know that the U.S. military gives equipment, does consulting, and even gives funding for many Hollywood movies portrayals. So is as we speak to the leaders and the decision makers and what I call the international war criminals, as we speak to them, does that somehow start to diminish or erode people's indoctrination and the mass media war propaganda here in the United States?
It's a good question. I mean, I think to me, it doesn't, in the sense that, we're trying to do grassroots organizing to say, come speak to these people in the context of telling them you're angry, but not that they can necessarily solve your problems, but that you may have to displace them to do so. So I think that's that educational aspect. But I do think the point you're making is strong. I mean, the level of reinforcement day in, day out, from basically the time you wake up to the time you go to sleep, of these politics is one of our biggest challenges. And that's why in some ways, it has to be hit from so many different directions. I mean, we have to be able to take, the energy and the people who are there on Saturday or any given day, funnel that back into all the various other forms of work, including the things that don't necessarily seem directly related. Like, we have to find a way to interject ourselves into the conversations people are having about their gas prices, into the conversations people are having about, oh, they lied to us about Iraq, into the conversations about, I need a place to live, into the conversations about, Cop City in Atlanta in the context of the military police, the military industrial complex intersection with the police state here in the United States. And I think that is really, maybe also that's why we have to do independent media, and why we need people who are watching to donate and to support it. I mean, I think people always say, oh, donate. But I think a lot of times people don't recognize that, this is actually a form of power. Like those accumulated $1, $2, $3, $4, $5 can be the difference between having $500,000 and $1 million. And that difference can mean everything in terms of the ability to project a message, to reach more people, to educate more people, to do things more professionally. And so I think we have to really look at, marches and rallies as just one component of a broader strategic thrust, which has to be centered on, in my view, basically, foundational grassroots organizing around the issues that are really affecting people's daily lives the most, and political education processes to help them understand the things that are happening to them. And how do we use these moments in time, these marches, these rallies, these anniversaries, these months or whatever that we're sort of given that add an extra whatever, couple eyeballs and extra, looking at the issue because of that particular moment, to then filter that energy from people who weren't working and weren't paying attention, then back down into the things that have to be happening that aren't going to be the big moments necessarily the front page news on a day-to-day basis, to keep reinforcing our message over and over again. Because I watched a little bit of that devotion on the plane. It was like, I'm glad that the flight ended, to be honest with you, before they really got to the Korean War portion, because
porn.
The little bit I caught was just porn. You'd have no idea why the Korean War was happening. That's for sure.
And that's why every time I see those movies, I'm like, that's going to increase recruitment specifically from the Black community. And that's why they put rising stars. They're going to put them in some war porn in the United States. And I'm not even sure if the masses of the people really understands the role that the Pentagon plays in the production and editing of scripts for major Hollywood movies and video games.
And by the way, even old boy being Kang now in the dying Marvel universe is it's more military nationalism, all draped in comic book. It's doing the same thing. By the way, Eugene, I think you knew John Judge. I don't know if anyone, Diallo, you knew him too. Like, I don't know if anybody does. I'm just, I'm thinking of him because of the counter recruitment work that he used to do, that I briefly linked up with him on. And I don't know if people still do, or who does that work, I should ask. I'm sure, but because a lot of where they get those Black and brown kids is just going directly into the schools to supplement the nonsense that they get in the films, to actually go in there to say, hey, you should do this because you have no other option. Your life is meaningless unless you serve.
Right. And then his John Judge's research about the imbalance of enforcements of codes and standards within the U.S. military, how Black soldiers are more likely to be disciplined and discharged or lowered in rank for infractions, whereas their white soldiers are often given a pass or less harsh punishments on that too. So, because I actually share that with a lot of young people. I still share that video where he was detailing.
Sorry about that.
I'm sorry. Where he was detailing, the imbalance once you become a soldier, or as Del Jones says, you can be fighting for them, but they still going to hate you.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's all over. I mean, it really is. I mean, they have an office. Like, most people don't know, the Pentagon has a whole office that all they do is liaise with, whoever in movie studios. It's like, well, whatever, what do you need? You need this, you need that, you need this. And of course, then they get it for you. And you see, you can see Black Panther. I didn't see the second one, to be honest with you, but the first one, obviously the CIA agent becomes a hero. Again, I didn't even see the second one. And honestly, maybe I will see it at some point.
It's worse.
Yeah. Somehow the storyline is Black people and Latino people fighting. And I think America steps in as a savior. I don't know. It seems so ridiculous. I just thought whatever. But, they are getting significant assistance to put a lot of these things together, the weapon systems, the training, all of that. The Marvel universe, you mentioned, Jared, being one of the most, egregious offenders in that sense. But yeah, it's a challenge. It's a huge challenge. We have the cop shows, same thing. I mean, it's all so ridiculous when you think about what they're doing overseas, like risking turning the whole world into nuclear ash over like Taiwan and 2 provinces of Ukraine. You have to have this level of propaganda. Like, unless you have this level of brainwashing and propaganda, I don't even know if you can carry out something like this, because there really is, when you start to look into the logical parts of it, when you start to think, who is this really helping? The answers you get are so at odds and so at variance with what the mainstream narrative is. You have to muddy the waters in so many different ways. I mean, I remember talking once to a former prosecutor, about why it's hard to convict cops even when you have like a black jury. And he was like, well, the thing is no cop usually ever comes in with the defense of, hey, I'm a racist and I'm just gunning people down. They always come in with like, this was a very unique circumstance, and you have to understand he made a huge mistake. And then this guy said to me, and this was deep, he was like, and that's what's in all the TV shows, is like the cops killed someone. It was a huge mistake. There was something they couldn't see. They never could have known. They feel so bad about it. And since most average people, like we all are like, yeah, we all make mistakes on a day-to-day basis. And if that's their job, I guess sometimes they make a mistake. And how that's such a powerful psychological mechanism that's really kind of rooted in our heads, that in police shootings, it's so, as they say in football, bang, bang, play. You have no idea. So of course, this guy, what a tragic situation, but we can't send him to jail. And I thought that was like a deep, element of that, in terms of how people approach looking at something that a lot of people, maybe most people think is like definitely wrong. How someone who feels that way could step into a jury box and because of this conditioning say, well, I don't know, maybe it was dark, maybe it was this. And so I think with the military, it's a very similar piece.
So, by the way, folks, before you start, getting your free Geechee shirts, we have not silenced Geechee. I believe there was a delay and some audio issues. I don't know if you're with us on time or not and want to jump in if you've gotten any of that together. But so that was what was going on. Yeah.
I don't know if it's still a delay. It sounds like it's a delay, but I'll ask and then just get it in. But so there's this idea that older people in movement who said we've done all that. I mean, that didn't work. I mean, we did it for 150 years ago. Like, how do you respond to, I guess, the people who are not heavily propagated into being pro-American, but the actual people who said they were a part of the movement, they're like, man, y'all wasting your time. We already did that. Y'all still doing this? How do you respond to them?
I would probably say, every single slave revolt failed too. But the slaves kept revolting because sometimes you just don't have a choice in the context of the conditions. And I think a lot of times we connect, quote unquote failure. And in some ways I'd redefine that, even past efforts that didn't succeed. I don't know if I look at them as a failure, but we look at failure with somehow, just explicitly the tactics. And sometimes the strategy, and sometimes it is the tactics, and sometimes it is the strategy. But sometimes you got good tactics and strategy, and your enemy is just too strong. I think that a lot of the most radical activity we've ever seen, and when you really, especially when you talk about things like, real radical revolution, things like that, that's why usually there's multiple events that lead up to the final event. Like most revolutionaries try a couple things. I mean, I mentioned the Moncada with Fidel Castro, armed uprising attempt there. That's why the July 26th movement is that, because that's when it happens. They rolled up in a military base. They did not succeed. But nonetheless, they subsequently came back 7 years, 8 years later with basically the same plan to lead an armed uprising to overthrow a dictatorship. And it worked out, even though it did not seem like it was going to work out, in the first couple of weeks. And I think that this sort of multiple acts in one play is a way I try to think about that. Not that we shouldn't always analyze our tactics and analyze our strategy, but that's why I go back to the issue of slave revolts is, many people would say that slave revolts in and of themselves had a pretty low chance to win when you sort of look at the broader context, but nonetheless it was still a very crucial, important weapon and tactic. And when the context changed and we moved into the concept of the Civil War, the idea of a mass revolt of slaves became a huge, powerful movement that changed the world and made it possible for the Confederacy to be defeated on a number of different fronts. So I think we have to look at, first and foremost, as nothing as an isolation. Like, it's not just marching, it's not just political education, it's not just media work, it's not just tenant organizing, it's not just union organizing, it's not just uprisings like Ferguson, Baltimore, in the places we've seen, Minneapolis and places like that. It's some combination of all of those things happening in the right context with the right organization, the right leadership, and the right strategy that makes revolution happen. And I think we shouldn't get as caught up necessarily in a tactical discussion as in a strategic discussion of what does it really take to sort of reach those parts of society that we need to activate on all those fronts for these things to be possible. So that'd be my main response to that, I think.
Right. So basically they're saying that Eugene is saying that Diallo is right, and Skip said that Jared was right on the other show. So thanks for that.
I think we're all
starting something. You know, can I bring this, being that, you know, I, like Clarence Thomas, I am a race man, and we can't help but understand the disparities when it was white folks' turn to die, and white on white warfare, and how even the left, even the liberals, had such a visceral response, as opposed to ongoing wars in U.S. military atrocities in places, Congo, and expanding of AFRICOM, the Horn of Africa, of course, Palestine, the Latin American war. The United States is fighting a war under the guise of what they call the drug war still goes on in Latin America. So there are ongoing U.S. military atrocities across the globe, and I don't see Haitian flags or Congolese or South Sudan or Palestinian flags flying in you know, I live on the south side of Chicago. I dwell in the progressive and liberal spaces, but I see Ukrainian flags everywhere. So understandably, a large segment of the African continent and the Black community in the United States are kind of like, wait, what? Oh, now y'all care about the bombs dropping. Now y'all care about the refugee crisis. When people of African descent, the African diaspora and the African continent, and other non-white people across the globe have been dealing with this, as you mentioned, the Iraq War, which they say, you know, it was weird to hear that they're saying it was the 20th anniversary, when, from my recollection, this started with the Clinton administration and the first Bush administration. So can you really speak to that? The fact that when white folks turn to die comes, then there's so much outcry and despair when the Black people and other non-white populations, it's just it's background noise or the status quo that they suffer under ongoing military atrocities?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great point. I mean, I think it's obviously true. I mean, the conditioning around war, I mean, because most wars do happen in the global south, at least in the sort of post-World War II imperial era, is that like war, violence, death, destruction, like that's natural, especially when we're talking about Africa. And that, you know, those people over there are, you know, inordinately violent, killing, whatever. We don't really understand what's going on. They're just always killing each other. And so I think when there's a war in this context in Europe, like in Ukraine, it does carry that sort of racial coding to it, where it's like, whoa, no one's supposed to be attacking these people or doing this thing. I mean, when you look at Ukraine in the very beginning and all the refugees leaving, going over the borders into Poland and places like that. I mean, these are basically the same border police that just several months before were brutally beating people coming from Iraq and from Syria trying to get into Europe. And, you know, they were actually then, you know, blaming it actually at that point on Belarus, saying, oh, you know, Belarus is trying to, you know, mess up Europe. And so they're bringing all these people from the Middle East and putting them over our border. We can't let them in. And then it's like 1 million Ukrainians. Not only are they letting them in, you know, they're paying for them to have housing, to have food. Like no refugee population in the history of Europe, at least not since, let's say, 1950 something, has ever been treated like this. And I think it's unbelievable in so many ways. I mean, it's totally believable when you know what's going on, but at least it's completely outrageous in terms of how you see it. And so I think that is a huge factor in what's going on with Ukraine, is that the sort of double standard that, I mean, as you know, the EU head, Joseph Borrell, was saying, this whole issue of the garden and the jungle. And, you know, we are the garden and we have to protect our garden from the people in the jungle coming here. I mean, I'm so happy he said it. I mean, what an amazing unguarded moment. I mean, it was obviously the type of thing that, you know, your advisors would never want you to say, but I thought that was very clear. We need to protect our way of life against their way of life. And when they mean their way of life, they really mean the idea that America and Europe can control the whole world. I mean, why is Russia really a threat ultimately? I mean, it's certainly not because Russia was against America. I mean, without a doubt, Putin in his entire time since 1999 has been trying to work with America and Europe. In fact, many people would argue has gone out of his way to try to work with them, despite the fact that the whole time they were obviously working against him. I mean, the whole time he's been there, NATO was going eastward. The brief time he was gone when Medvedev, who I guess is now, born again hard, to use a Full Metal Jacket reference, but, let's remember when he was the head of Russia, he stood aside on the war in Libya. And to allow the West to do it, to curry favor with them. That's ultimately why he was pushed out and Putin came back. But nonetheless, it's certainly not because Russia is any real threat to America. They want to do business with America, but they also want to do business with people everywhere else. And they want to push whatever their interests are everywhere else. So they create a pivot point for the quote unquote jungle, if you will, to just keep the reference going, the metaphor, to actually be able to make their own decisions or more independent or more self-determining and sovereign decisions. The same thing with China. And I think that they have their own individual challenges to the West, but they also create the basis whereby Africa, and we haven't seen as much as I think we'd like to from a lot of these African governments. Hopefully we'll see more. Latin America, where we've seen more of this. Asia, where people can start to say, well, you know what? We may agree with you on some things. We don't agree with you on all things, but this whole US makes the rules and everyone else follows, like we can't live like that anymore. So we're going to start doing more of what we want. And that's an existential crisis to this sort of white supremacist imperialist way of understanding the world, that America and Europe should make the rules, that everyone should follow them, and that anyone else is an apostate. And I think the war in Ukraine is a challenge to that status quo in such a big way. And it strikes so directly at the heart of who quote unquote deserves to be in these situations, in a way that obviously DR Congo going on right now, the ongoing fighting that's happening there's nothing like, forget the media coverage, even the humanitarian aid issue, where you've got, I think over now, probably nearly 1.2 million IDPs there in the eastern part of DRC, and no one, I mean, they're just begging for aid. And then you turn on the TV and there's the commercial for UNICEF, and it's like the children in Ukraine are starving. And I mean, I'm sure there are some children in Ukraine who are not doing great, and I hope they are able to get what they need to survive. But at the same time, you can see the double standards that are being at play, which I think are both racialized and speak to sort of what that kind of racialized fear of the West not ruling the world really means, which is like those people over there who we've demonized as violent, savage, whatever, could actually start to make their own decisions that might impact negatively on us and the things that we want to do and the things that we want to see.
Right on. Go ahead.
Well, I'm trying to bring it back to, because I understand the oppressors, the right wing, the pro-military, but within the anti-war movement itself, like I've talked to white progressives who applaud Ukraine's efforts to take up arms against Russia. And those same individuals condemn Palestinians taking up arms. They condemn the Iraqi insurgents and the Afghans who took up arms, and the violent terrorists, the guerrillas. And so within the movement, within the people who figured this out, who are against war, who are against imperialism, who are against the war machine, but within the movement itself, the centering white people, the valuing of white people, the just blatant racism and dehumanization, or the neglect or deflection of it, because just like the US capitalists want to dictate how to rule the world, the white progressive and liberals, or the left itself, wants to dictate how we resist. So it's control. We're getting controlled by the oppressors, but we're also there's a lot of control and white centering within leftist movements. I was hoping you could speak to that.
Let me add one more level of specificity to that, because I just had an exchange this morning with dear brother Dr. Anthony Montero, Professor Montero, who publicly just once again condemned what's happening tomorrow because it was not in support of what had happened last month. Suffice it to say, we don't agree. He thinks I have a lot to learn, and I agree. But the point being that there's this idea that this somehow is not a properly productive gathering because it's not fully in support of other nominally anti-war efforts, and is too divisive among the left. Could you maybe add that to your response to Diallo as well?
Yeah, I absolutely can. I mean, on the Ukraine issue, yeah, I would say that people who think they've figured it out, who say they're anti-war and anti-imperialists, who are still backing Ukraine, have not actually figured it out to the extent that they think they have. Look, I'm not begrudging people in Ukraine doing anything, but the idea that, the response from anti-imperialists around the world should be to strengthen the imperialist war machine, to pour, billions and billions of dollars of weapons into Ukraine to support this fighting to the last Ukrainian aspect, for, an extremely corrupt, anti-working class agenda, which is the agenda of the Ukrainian government, quite frankly, when you look at what they want to do, that's the right response. I don't know how that's the anti-war position, to make the war deeper, stronger, broader, more powerful, to strengthen NATO, to strengthen the US military, to increase the understanding that this war propaganda around Russia and China is somehow right as opposed to wrong. I mean, the fact that all of that's being pushed to the side, to me, shows that a lot of these people who are saying they understand the issues don't fully understand the issues, and they're responding in a way that is I think, to your point, Diallo, sort of emotionally conditioned about what they think is right and wrong, and who they think is the most aggrieved party in the context of any conflict like this. But I think that you just have to see, and I think there is a lot of policing, and I think that's why we're trying to do this on March 18th, because people are trying to say, well, you can't say anything about Ukraine. If you say anything about Ukraine, then somehow you're some evil dictator, pro-Putin, XYZ. I mean, obviously there are some people who are pro-Putin who are saying this, but the vast majority of people are clearly not. You don't have to be, you don't have to really have any particular position on the government in Russia to say that driving the world to the brink of nuclear conflict, raging a proxy war, strengthening you look at the rearming of Germany. What's that really about? Well, Ursula von der Leyen, who is now the EU Commission, she used to be the German defense minister, and she used to really push this issue of German rearmament so that they could go into Africa and play a bigger role in Africa, similar to France, if not bigger. Well, we can already see these people are not going to fight Russia themselves. That's why they're fighting to the last Ukrainian. So if they had $100 billion to the military in Germany, it's not actually going to be about Russia. It's going to be about Africa. It's going to be about other parts of the world and how they're pushing forward that agenda. So if you think you're doing something by supporting Ukraine, you're probably doing the opposite. But yes, I think that when you combine the issue of, why Ukrainians are viewed as uniquely victimized in America and in the West, which we saw in all that early media coverage, the blonde hair, blue eyes, like people actually saying that on television, like, well, this is different than these other wars. I think that plays a huge role, even in the left, in terms of how people are conditioned. I think there's also just a lot of fear about going against the tide of the sort of Russiagate, sort of demonization. I mean, Russia is not Cuba. It's not the National Liberation Front in Vietnam. I mean, in many ways, it's a very execrable government in terms of some of their policies. On some of their things they do internationally are very good. So it's much more complicated, I think, than a lot of the kind of, good, bad, black, white kind of stories that a lot of people are used to. And I think that cows a lot of people in terms of their willingness to push back. But, to go to the other point that you're making, Jared, there's a lot of things I could say. I mean, if you follow the internet conversation, it seems like, many of the people who are around on February 19th are talking about how important it is to be there on Saturday. And we didn't ask them to do that. So I think, it speaks in and of itself to where a lot of those people feel. I'm sorry, Dr. Montero doesn't feel the same way. But, the reality is you have to really address, like, who are you building with? I mean, you want to build big, broad coalitions, but from my point of view, if like multiple Nazi groups feel comfortable attending your event openly, you've made some serious mistakes. And I think in the context of opposing the proxy war in NATO, we can't allow it to become, you know, like this white supremacist caboose. I mean, you've got Marjorie Taylor Greene, and people say, oh, you know, Marjorie Taylor Greene and the MAGA, they're against the war. Well, listen to her statements. Her statements are, take the money from Ukraine and send it to the southern border. So stop still killing Ukrainians, but gun down Haitians and Nicaraguans and Venezuelans and people coming from Guatemala and wherever they're coming from. You know, and that to me is not a good answer. It's actually a worse answer. And in fact, it's basically saying double down on the war, just don't do it in Europe, do it with non-white peoples. And that's, you know, more or less the upshot of all of that right-wing anti-war stuff, because the other thing they say is we have to go to war against China. Most of them, there's a handful of them who aren't. So you've got, you know, an idea out there that somehow the only way to build opposition to imperialism is just gather up everybody, you know, who might be against imperialism. But the reality is there are a lot of people who are going to oppose U.S. foreign policy for a lot of reasons, and they are not all good. And we don't want to just impose imperialism because it's bad. We want to impose imperialism to try to transform the world and offer a different alternative. You're not going to do that with Nazis. You're not going to do that with white supremacists. And you're not going to do it with people who just think that that's like a side issue, and who, you know, really ultimately feel that the humanity of the vast majority of the globe is essentially immaterial to, you know, the messaging and the movements that you want to build. I think it's deeply problematic. I think that, you know, it's deeply myopic. I think it's rooted in the fact that, yes, we have a lot of work to do. And I think when you feel, you know, weak, that often encourages people to try to find a way to very quickly get strong, but just doing something, you know, for expedience sake is not the right way to do it. I mean, there has to be some, you know, solid basis of strategy. There has to be some solid basis for coalition building. And so, yes, I would say that I'm not surprised that there are some people who are upset that the March 18th event is organized by, you know, 200 organizations, most of which did not show up at February 19th. And, you know, that was our right. That was our prerogative. There's no law that said we had to be there, especially not when, you know, some of the people there are people whose politics are ultimately against what we're trying to do. They just want to redirect, you know, the energy and the anger in different places. And it's really giving people a false consciousness, in my point of view, about what's actually going on in the world. And thus answering the question that Chairman Mao put before us all many years ago, the most important question for all revolutionaries: who are our friends and who are our enemies? I mean, that really is what it comes down to. So that's how I would look at both of those things. And we've got two wings of the quote unquote left that I think are barking up the wrong tree. The people who, for whatever reason, are pro-Ukraine. I think some of it is racism and people who are affected by that. I think some of it is fear. I think some of it is also just like straight up opportunism. Like if you're for Ukraine, it's a lot easier for you than to say anything different. I think that's one side of it. And I think the other side of it, obviously, are those who feel that, you know, anything is permissible in opposition to the NATO proxy war in Ukraine. So we want to offer a different, more hopeful, more transformative message on Saturday. And by the way, a very broad group of people who are coming together, as people will see. You can go look, you know, on our website and see those 200 organizations are very diverse, you know, from, you know, the multiple Haiti solidarity groups to Eritrean and Ethiopian communities to working class organizations here in the United States to Filipino domestic and migrant workers to, you know, people like myself, you know, who will be there, who are longtime anti-war activists and media workers who are out there. We could go on and on and on, but I think you can see that it's not some narrow piece. We're trying to push out into the breadth and the depth of the country, but to also talk about the real issues and the real solutions, not militarizing the southern border, going to war with China, which some of these, you know, so-called war opponents, you know, that's what's really hiding behind it, you know, at the end of the day.
So I know you got to go.
Yeah, I'll add this, actually. I'm sorry. I do want to say this. No. You know, it's you talk about Marjorie Taylor Greene. You can also look at Tulsi Gabbard, who, you know, is also a big fan of these people, who's a part of the U.S. military psyops in Somalia, proudly posting it on her Twitter. And then someone's going to say, oh, I can't believe you wouldn't attend a rally with that.
You also weren't invited, by the way, if I remember.
Somalia.
Yes,
and she's out here talking about, I'm proudly serving with the psy warfare element of this multi-year U.S.-backed war that has destroyed the country since 2007. I mean, it's some of this seems more obvious than it needs to be. And I think it's unfortunate that a lot of people are trying to muddy the waters around this. But if you really want to be out and be against imperialism, the one thing I can tell you is if you're there on March 18th, the only, military people you're going to see are formerly affiliated veterans who, stepped out and opposed everything from the second they woke up to it, and aren't confused now about Somalia, about Iraq, about Ukraine, or about Venezuela, Cuba, or anywhere else.
Right on. Hey, listen, I know you got to go, but I did watch a presentation that Brian Becker gave that Breakthrough News has on its channel about the importance of the Communist Manifesto.
Mm.
And it's everybody should check it out. It's very interesting. And even for those of us who have read the manifesto many times, it's very informative. There's a lot of context he adds. But one of the points that he made is that it was something about the cyclical nature of the popularity of the book, that as it was written itself, it had no impact on any of the revolutions in the world. It was not for another 20, 30, 50 years. And then cyclically, every time it gets more well-read, more widely read, there's something happens. It's currently getting on Amazon. I think he pointed out it's like, I think the sales of it are back up again is the point. I only wanted to quickly add just for that I hope the same thing happens with Blood in My Eye. I just hope. So I'm just hoping that its impact will be maybe realized at some other point in time. But that said, I just wanted to use that to quickly shout out that presentation, but to give you a quick outro, an invitation for some concluding comments about the overall importance of what this march means to the broader politics that you support, and what those politics mean to working people, average people, and even specifically Black people, who are not often associated with these kinds of anti-war efforts, for whatever reasons. But anyway.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I also hope that Blood in My Eye can rise up. I mean, I think it's probably doing better the past 5 years than it has in a while. So let's just hope for that. Maybe we should bring out a new edition and see how that does. And that might tell us something. I don't know who has the rights to it, but we could look into that. But yeah, I mean, from my point of view, the stakes are just too high. And it's critically important that we try to surface and emerge in multiple different forms, including marches and rallies like March 18th, 1 p.m. in front of the White House, that bring together a true anti-imperialist resistance. I mean, I think that, it affects all sorts of people all around the world. But when we talk about the war machine, fund people's needs, not the war machine, and how it's draining our communities, I think when we're talking about, African diasporic people here in the United States, I mean, we are bearing the brunt of that more than anyone else. I mean, it's honestly amazing when you look at it. Like, Black people, we're disproportionately in poverty, disproportionately unemployed, disproportionately dying of diabetes, AIDS, and hypertension, disproportionately dying in the military in and of itself, disproportionately living in the worst places from the point of view of environmental justice and racism. I mean, I'm not going to go on because this is Black Power Media, so y'all know. But I mean, when we're talking about basically every social indicator of relevance whatsoever in the United States of America, Black people tend to be on the very bottom, or like just above Indigenous people and Native Americans, which, also should tell us something about the true nature and structure of this country. So when you talk about the things that people are losing, the cost of living crisis all around the world that's being created by these wars, I mean, sometimes I think we hesitate to speak in pocketbook issues, because obviously the biggest, victims tend to be those who are bearing the brunt directly. Like, the people in Venezuela are bearing the brunt to a much greater extent than we are of the sanctions on Venezuela. But at the end of the day, if you have to go to work every day and fill up your gas tank, especially if you live in the southeastern part of the United States where Citgo, the Venezuelan oil company, used to be strong, like, you are paying more money at the pump because someone has decided somewhere else, without ever asking you, that we're going to sanction Venezuela, that we're going to sanction Iran, that we're going to sanction Russia, and driven up the gas prices. And those people are making a lot of money, but you, in fact, are suffering. And the same thing can be said, all up and down the line. I mean, President Biden in his address so-called, State of the Union, which is always strong. They never say it's weak. You can always predict that. But he says we're gonna get all the lead pipes out of the schools. You know what I mean? And obviously we know that has been a huge challenge for our communities. You look at Baltimore, I think we're like 3-4 generations deep of lead poisoning. But here's the thing. They're going to take the lead pipes out of a bunch of the schools, but in people's homes, they're still going to have the lead pipes, which means this multi-generational poisoning of our youth in places like Baltimore, Maryland, is going to continue over the next several generations. So you're saying we can send $15.5 billion to Ukraine to support the government. This is just the government of Ukraine got $15.5 billion in 2022 to do whatever they wanted with, no questions asked, and we can't spend that money for the lead paint and the lead pipes in Baltimore, in Flint, in Jackson, Mississippi, and all these places. And then even when we do spend the money in a place like Jackson, they say, well, we're going to give white people the ability to control it and take it away from Black people. So, for Black Americans, for all working class people in America, for all the people in the world, the proxy war in Ukraine, this massive worldwide sanctions, the drone wars everywhere, the attempts to control the whole world, it's rebounding negatively on us. It's only helping a small group of people at the top of the pyramid who are not us. And I think that this is an opportunity coming from a low base. Yes, it's been a while since we've had the chance to get out in numbers, to really start rebuilding our movements, our confidence, our ability to educate, our ability to mobilize. And I hope everybody who's watching this is not only there on March 18th at 1 p.m., but if you're watching this right now, that you're donating to Black Power Media, because we have to put our money where our mouth is. I'm a devotee of the myth and propaganda of Black buying power. So I'm not going to say that we have all this money that we don't have, but the reality is we can spend tens of millions of dollars to support institutions like Black Power Media if we want to, if we have it in our mind. So I'll see everybody in the streets March 18th, 1 p.m. this Saturday in front of the White House.
You heard him. Drop it. Eugene Puryear, thank you very much. Again, we want people to come on out this weekend. We'll have the link, all that in the show description if it's not there already. And we'll look to build with you again. And shout out to you and Breakthrough News. By the way, I saw someone in the chat ask about that. It is Brian Becker. I think it's the presentation called from the People's Forum called something about why it's important to read the Communist Manifesto or something to that extent. I'll find it, put the link in the show description as well. And yeah, it was right on. So anyway, Eugene, thank you very much, my man. Take good care. We'll catch up with you another time. I appreciate it. All right, my man. See you soon. All right, everybody. Big thanks to Eugene. Let's take a quick break and come back. A lot more to get to right here on Earn Your Liberation and BPM. So I don't know if either of you are in the studio and have any better setup. So I want to ask the audience for a little bit of forgiveness here, because I have not been able to pull up the chat or the in the studio here for about 30 minutes. There's something wrong with StreamYard.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I think something going on because the numbers are down. It's like it says 5 people in there, and
yeah, but on YouTube, well, I already know on YouTube alone, there's about 300. So shout out to everybody for tuning in. We know you're there, and I see the chat is still going there, and people have put in a couple of super chats. So it's not that we're ignoring you; it's that we cannot pull it up until we do something to fix the StreamYard. And I was even chatting with one of the support staff. As little as possible, because I was even saying, look, I can't even do stuff because I'm listening to this show.
I didn't know. I thought people just tuned out after we stopped talking about Sierra.
Oh no. Oh, you saw? Yeah, no. Everybody left. No, they're still there. So just real quick, shout out to Renee Johnston. I see that you've left a super chat. I just can't pull it up. Same thing with, I think there was a Nestor Campbell. I want to say I can't pull it up. So we see you're there. I just can't go back and find it right now, and I can't pull it up. So I just wanted to, like the last one, I did see Insomniac. This is the last one I saw. However, back is it immoral for me to work for a state attorney's office? Don't want anything to do with locking people up, but is it worth to try to make change on the progressive prosecutor, change from inside? You could do what little, my 2 cents would be, and thanks for the super chat. And this is just an example of that we see and can't really pull them up. But my 2 cents on that would be, you could do what good you think you can, but I wouldn't expect that you're going to have massive impact on the institution from within. But anyway,
I would like to quote the great philosopher Cat Williams: "Get your money, boo boo." But yeah, ain't none of us ethically or morally earning or spending money within this the systems and institutions of global white domination. But if you are there and you do want to engage into some type of subversive or countermeasures within the halls, because you just have to get creative. I don't want to talk specifics, but I've worked in I've worked in prisons, and I've even worked done contract work in private prisons, and where there is a will to engage in countermeasures or subversive actions within some of the more egregious jobs or more egregious institutions. Where there is a will, there is a way to make a positive contribution to justice and just aspirations. But you just got to be creative and sneaky as hell. Plus, and, beyond that, when your time off, that's you can always make contributions and engage with the struggle in many ways.
Plus, I think that we have to begin to stop using the word change from within. Like I feel like a lot of people are in their head quoting or thinking they're doing what the spook did, and that's not even actually what happened in the book or the movie. So I feel like we need to just give up that thought of like going in. So Diallo, you're not going to go to.
People don't read these books. People don't watch these movies.
You can't go to a Christian space and convert everybody to Islam. So if that was your
dream, that has happened. What are you talking about? That's happening all over the place, and there's conversions,
militarily,
and deconversions. It's all a hustle.
Let me.
People be jumping, switching gang, and
before I lose it in the chat, shout out to Ty 313. I just want you to speak on the new sexual assault accusations on ROTC. If you didn't speak on it, military admits it on their publications. Sorry, I can't pull this up, but thank you for the super chat, Ty 313. I don't.
Yeah, there you
go. There, yo, you see it? Where do you see that at?
I'm the captain now. It's on. It's just.
Oh no, that's in the star chat, right? Because Ty put this up twice. Oh, I'm looking at Ty sent this up again. So that's the original question that I had already saved. So yeah, okay.
That's the wrong one. That's not the one you referenced.
It's the same question from the same person asked differently at different times. I had already saved that one from before. Ty just asked it again with another super chat, but I couldn't pull that one up because we can't get the live stream. I'm looking at the live stream from the YouTube separately from. But anyway, I don't know anything about that story, rates of rape and molestation, all kinds of violent sexual crimes within the military have been published and are quite high for a long time. So this does not surprise me. And reason 4080 that my children were not allowed to participate in any of that.
So on a lighter, no, not a light, on a darker note. So this is my first time seeing Eugene in the past year, but Asafo was actually reading Eugene's book.
Shackled and Chained.
Shackled and Chained. He literally had it on his person, and after
man, that's right. Damn.
After whatever happened, like we found the book a week later on the scene, and so it actually gives me pause to be like, I wonder if the law enforcement saw the book and also saw him and made him not want to investigate the scene properly or whatever the case may be. But like that book was literally out in the ditch right next to where he was at. So every time I think about Eugene, I'm kind of like always tying those into together. But
Yeah, my bad. Yeah, wow. And rest in peace, man. Damn, man. Yeah. That's and we would at least have to be able to say that it would not be inconsistent for them to have reacted that way had they seen that book. So uh on yeah, go ahead.
No, well, going back to you know, talking about, really great brothers that we lost, I was thinking back to Glenn Ford, where we're talking about anti-war rallies. And Brother Ford pointed out that for the first time in US history under the Obama administration, the black community as a whole was more pro-war, more bloodthirsty, pro-imperialism than the white population. When Obama was proposing putting boots on the ground in Syria, in the ongoing war in Syria, and when the general public were asked about the atrocities, which they didn't frame it that way, but that's what it was, the atrocities in Libya, black people were polling higher than white people in support of the military operations under the Obama administration and their trust in the appropriateness or correctness of those efforts under the Obama administration. So for the first time, black people polled higher in support of the military and U.S. military intervention and the war machine in general under the Obama administration than they ever have since the record keeping had begun. And I was just wondering, how it has that dissipated since Obama has left office?
I don't know. I don't know the numbers on that.
Yeah.
I'd be, yeah, I don't know the numbers on that.
I mean, I wonder if the increase of family members being participant in the military like has coincide with that, because I would assume, maybe I'm just from my personal standpoint, but I think that more and more black people are joining, not only joining the military but getting higher ranks and stuff like that. So I would assume that our pro U.S. military is still kind of rampant.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something because, it was generally my point of view that black people would just inherently or reflexively be anti-military, but just watching um, what's happening, just how it's resonating on the streets, on social media, within the various black institutions, this militarism is starting to really um, manifest within amongst the black masses in ways that I don't think I've ever experienced prior to or before the Obama administration. And it seems to be maybe not at the level that it was, but I mean, just patriotism in general and support for our troops, or even identifying them as our troops. I do think that that's something that maybe should be investigated if it isn't currently.
That was something, in our little exchange this morning. I said, because Montero, in our discussion, praised Glenn Ford and noted what he suggests is a downfall or a downward turn of Black Agenda Report post Glenn Ford's death. And I asked him, I said, do you think Glenn Ford would be supportive of that rally that you went to, as opposed to the one that we were just talking with Eugene about happening tomorrow? Because I can't imagine Glenn, first of all, being invited, much less participating. But anyway, I think, but I would like to look into that. What you're asking about the where black folks are with military support, that'd be interesting. I know we do have at least one story we wanted to get to, because we always want to keep tabs with our beloved black billionaires. But if I could just real quick, I did want to share. I want to give a big shout out to Professor Khalid Alexander and his crew out there at San Diego City College and the Social Justice Conference that just hosted me and several others this week. my talk is on the site now, and was very was very interesting. I've never been challenged ever on the issue of STEM, and so that was fascinating. But specifically, I bring this up because unlike apparently you, Diallo, I really am in these streets. So I was in these San Diego streets.
I surrendered the streets. Y'all can have them.
But I will say, again, shout out to Professor Alexander and his crew, and that I'm looking to bring on around here more often in a variety of ways, because a lot of the work that he does is with returning citizens, formerly incarcerated, members of street organizations, sometimes described as gangs. We did have this very surreal moment, and the Black and brown divide and or coming together as well. And at one point, so we were, it was me, him, and this Chicano professor who I'm going to be bringing around as well, and a couple of these younger cats who had been involved with these in these organizations. And we go to this Chicano restaurant for lunch that is playing funk music in the background with the film Colors on the TV on the wall, with members of these various similarly situated organizations sitting with us at lunch. And it was kind of a funny, surreal moment. But it was also wild because even though it was my first time to this part of the city, and really my only second visit to San Diego at all, two of the brothers that were with us, who were born and raised in San Diego and part of these various communities and organizations, they were making their first ever visit to this part of San Diego, right, which is right around where Chicano Park was, which has its own fascinating history. And I took a bunch of pictures on my Instagram. So it was, they said that they didn't even know this community of Chicanos existed, and they live literally 5-10 minutes away, because those groups don't interact unless there was some sort of hostility. And in fact, the two brothers themselves had apparently had a history with their organizations and streets being in opposition to one another, who are now coming back together and overcoming all of those odds with the help of the professor Khalid Alexander, who had invited me out there and is a supporter of BPM. So shout out to all of them and all that work. And I look forward to hearing more from them. It was a fascinating visit, well beyond my own presentation. And I can't wait to hear more from them. But because, like, it's not just the tree-lined streets that I'm in all these streets. Anyway, now it was fascinating, and it's crazy. And one thing, just like what we talk about when we get into the realities of Black Wall Street, one thing that the city did to prevent the expansion and development of Chicano communities that were looking to revolutionize and expand themselves and connect themselves to their Mexican brethren on the other side of the border. Just like the United States had created that border in the first place, that whole, they didn't cross the border crossed them. They drove a highway or a street right down the middle of this Chicano Park expansion and development to block its, not only the view, scenically, but the literal material development of the community. They just said, nah, we're going to literally drive right through it. So, which, by the way, and I forgot to, I got to get Eugene back on here. I forgot to tell him because that is actually a major issue with the campaign I'm going to be involved with here in my village board. These billionaire contractors just literally plowing streets through people's communities, talking about it's good for them. Anyway,
our local Black aldermen and Black politicians, all they can promise the community here is investment, corporate and elite investment to come in. That's every politician's like, well, I can bring a Walmart, I can bring a highway project, I can bring development. and development is nothing more than extraction. You know, various forms of extracting from the community and hollowing out and diluting the community, and even people in the community are championing and voting for their own erasure at this point, because there's a slight potential that they'll have an opportunity to earn some more fiat and consume some more, goods.
Yeah. So anyway,
that's a nationwide issue for Black communities, at least.
Everywhere, yeah, no question. Geechee, you blacked out. Literally blacked out.
Oh yeah. Oh.
I don't know what happened.
I didn't notice any difference.
Yeah. Oh, that's messed up.
But brother,
we got some more we got some more anti-African propaganda. We got.
No, I see eyes and teeth. You're there. You're all right.
Oh damn. That's fucked up.
That's what. Where's Skip Coon at? I need to clip that joint.
It's on camera. Y'all get mad when I state simple facts. I'll just stop.
I gotta get Skip on. I gotta get that clip. And but anyway, all right. So we want to introduce our new segment. Politics watching.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna change my my lighting in a second. But yeah, we're gonna do a segment every show. We're gonna do politics watching instead of pocket watching. And so some of the I guess notable or relevant Black people who being talked about, we're gonna kind of follow their politics to see if they are somebody we can get behind. So recently they've been celebrating one of the Black billionaires, David Stewart, who I think, what is it, Worldwide Technology, he owns that. He's like the second richest Black man in the US. And so we just kind of dig into his politics and some of the things he's been doing. So every segment we're gonna pick one person. So even if the audience want to have us kind of watch or look into someone's politics that's popular in the news, you can kind of submit them throughout the week and we can cover them that way. But this week we're going with David Stewart and his politics and some of the things. So I think he's actually Diallo homeboy, because I think he's from Kansas City. So Diallo probably funded by his brother as well.
St. Louis.
But I think he's from,
which makes
from
him my bitter enemy. You don't know about the beef between the Royals and the Cardinals, Kansas City. And
what I'm saying is, I think he got some time in your spot though. I think he's from your old hood.
No, he's from
But
St.
yeah,
Louis.
like, so Diallo, I know you. Listen, man, his mama from Kansas City or something.
Oh, word.
But yeah,
he's rich though. You need.
But anyway, like, so I guess you can start first. Yeah, he got that bank.
Who, me?
Bank loan. But go ahead, you start out there. Yeah, you start out, since you said you already had some interesting things about and why he was so relevant.
I didn't have nothing on that dude, man. You know, I don't be stargazing. Y'all came to me because Mansa Fode, another Gullah Geechee, had shared his a post praising David Stewart and wishing him success in his endeavors, and suggesting that his individual success was either evidence of our people's excellence or evidence of our people's collective progress. And I always say that billionaires are akin in an economy are akin to metastatic tumors. You know, they don't show the health of the economy, they show the sickness of an economy. So I put him, you know how I lock in on class consciousness. And even with worldwide technologies, which most tech companies, even Facebook, Twitter, and some of the lesser known, because they're not really in social media or they don't make products consumed by the masses, most tech companies, the major employer and funder of these tech industries are military and intelligence and surveillance agencies. So Black people with multi-billion-dollar tech companies are almost guaranteed to be engaged in activities that sustain or entrench the status quo of capitalism, of imperialism and militarism. So no, I ain't got no.
Well, the only thing that I have, because I admit I don't know much about this guy other than reading over what you had sent just a little bit since last night. But what stood out, including in the piece that we looked at here, is that whoever is praising him being black and a billionaire, among the many things that they have wrong or don't seem to understand, is that he supports the most right-wing conservative politics. So, what where is the benefit to this person being a billionaire? What value beyond some distant symbol could this possibly have? If at the end of the day he's just going to take all this money that he made, first of all, from the same economy, the same capitalist business, corporate, technological arrangement that everybody else exploits, the same exploitation of labor. That's how he made his money. The same. I looked briefly, and he still required investment and venture capital support. That, you know, so I mean, it's everything he did. It literally is. I mean, it's like he is the epitome of what I'm sure he claims to want to be. That is, where the only thing different about him is his phenotype. There is zero else different about this person in terms of his behavior, his observable political behavior. I don't care what somebody does privately, but his observable political behavior is zero different from any other white male conqueror, conquistador, capitalist vampire. So what is the difference? And then he literally takes his money and gives it to the Trump campaign and this Republican governor and that Republican this and this one and that one. So he then funds all the operations that impoverish the rest of the community, that incarcerate the rest of the community, and bomb and surveil everybody else. So it's like, I mean,
so he has actually won. When I finished the Where Are They Now series, he's actually one of the people that Dr. Amos talked about in his book. Obviously before he was, you know, this wealthy, but a couple things, like the many people that Dr. Amos talked about in his book, he's one of those people that white wealthy people put in front so that they can get the minority set aside that the state gives them.
Amos Wilson talks about this guy.
Yeah. Worldwide Technologies is one of the many companies that we're going to cover on that series. But so his white CEO actually has more money than him, and
co-founder.
He's just kind of like
he's a co-founder or co-owner, not just a CEO.
So much. But
that Kavanaugh.
But there's also something that happened recently with him. One of his buddies, his buddy's a white guy. His son was he was kicked out of school for sexual assault, and so he started bankrolling state legislation to make it harder for us sexual assault victims to report their sexual assault. They lost, but just because this white man's son got kicked out of school for sexual assault, he bankrolled that whole efforts to lobby and get a law change so that it makes it harder for sexual assault victims. So like the dude has not only funding right-wing people, like he's done some grimy type shit with his money.
So how, man, he's not in the index. Where was he talked about in the book? You don't happen to know off the top?
I don't have my book with me, but let me, I can look it up right quick.
Is in the index. But anyway, all right. I was hoping to look it up real quick, but
I would also like to argue that it is different for black billionaires and prominent black people. A black president, Obama's presidency was different. Black billionaires do have a different impact on black consciousness or black people's understanding or engagement with the system. I don't, even though, like you correctly said, they do engage in a lot of the same behaviors to create and sustain their wealth. The way that reverberates through in terms of liberation struggles, in terms of the validation it gives the system, in terms of distorting Black people's position and role that we play in this system. I do think it is different, or just going back to that simple old school thing. It's bad when somebody stabs you in the back, but it's an absolute tragedy when it's your own brother or sister.
No, I was only saying, I agree. I was only saying in the observable behavior, there's no difference. But in this, in what you're talking about, yeah, I get it. You're right.
And even what I was talking about with Obama causing, turning the Black community essentially into a bunch of warmongers, when Black people have historically been the most cautious to support war and the first to condemn U.S. military actions. A lot of times these Black billionaires will have Black people praising, what we formerly condemned in terms of economic, political practices, or even excusing things that we formerly stood against or condemned in terms of economic practices, hoarding of wealth, and even supporting class war agendas and policies and politicians. So I just think that it hits different. Chocolate coated capitalism, it sometimes makes it easier for us to swallow it. And so that,
no question. Oh shucks, stay tuned, BPM. I think Eugene is down with the program. We're gonna turn my little village board campaign into a net. I mean, for real though, the microcosmic thing. I know people. I've never done the local politics that seriously. Certainly not since I left DC. But it is again what I've always said about my little suburban Section 8. It is a perfect microcosm of what's going on in the broader society, where you have billionaire contractors based in New York funneling money through local politicians. Apparently, it's widely known in the state capital that Howard County is the most corrupt county in the state of Maryland, wherever all the local politicians are bought up by these contractors to basically allow for them to build up, to change all the zoning regulations, to build up all this residency, to build residences. This is the biggest part right now. Build residences where the equity of those residences will go to the contractors. So, and then they claim because they make a few allotments for some lower income folks, that anyone who stands in their way is racist and against poor people. When in reality, they've set up a situation where they're going to put in a whole bunch of, they want to set up a whole bunch of more upper level or, elite properties that they benefit from, that the equity goes to the contractors, not even to the people that are nominally buying in. I mean, it is some wild stuff. And I had no idea that my little community was so foul and corrupt. Anyway.
Yeah, well, I'm sitting here in Illinois. It's kind of hard for me.
I know you don't know nothing about that in Chicago. You don't know nothing about that in Chicago. You don't know nothing about that griminess.
For me to sit and listen to anybody talk about political corruption,
You don't know nothing about these deep political machinations. You don't know nothing about that in Chicago. Let me school you.
Governance and transparency.
You don't know nothing about these Columbia, Maryland. Boy, I tell you, boy.
Yeah, I wish y'all had kept Obama over there. Why y'all send him back to us? Obama's building.
We're about to give you another one. We're about to give you Westmore. We're about to give you part 3 and 4.
Keep them, man. When they go to Mr. Barry goes to Washington,
and his jump shot better.
Keeping them on the East Coast, man. Stop sending them back here.
Apparently, Westmore is better than Barack in basketball, so you'll get him over there too.
That's what's relevant.
Now that's the ball chasing we want to see, huh, Diallo? 1-on-1, Obama versus Westmore.
Well, Oh shoot.
Anyway, what else we want to get to? What else was there? Anything?
We done pocket watching. Well,
with the banks crashing. Go ahead. I don't know, with the bank crashing, I wonder how we look. Like, for instance, they did the bank rush and the bank runs. Did any of those people, when they ran and got their money out of the bank, did they go bank black? Did they give Killer Mike some of the money? And how does these bank closures affect people like the black banks and the Killer Mikes out there? Or even the financial.
Well, you would have to be Killer Mike, because remember, the only people who didn't get their money, if I have this correct, the only people who didn't get their money are the rich people, because everybody who had less than 250,000 is covered.
Wrong.
Is that wrong?
Go ahead. Obama.
Go ahead.
Oh, not Obama. Let me say it is Obama. I mean, is Biden not Obama's third term?
That's what they said they wanted, but go ahead.
Check
me on that.
Technically. I mean, Obama was Bill Clinton's third term. Neoliberalism reigns, but Biden has lifted the FDIC cap.
Oh, yeah.
So if you had money in the bank,
he says, "Oh, Biden."
Beyond $250,000, the federal government, the working class, the masses will cover you. He has lifted the cap, the FDIC cap. So that,
you mean he's raised it?
No, he's eliminated it.
So there's no cap.
It's a temporary elimination of that cap.
So everybody's getting covered.
Everybody, millions of dollars are going to be given back. You know, and I just want to remind people, remember, the reason we argue that Bezos and all these other billionaires should be able to hoard the money is because they take the risk. Remember, they teach us, well, an entrepreneur deserves to skim and steal the wealth generated by all the employees, because the employees didn't take the risk. The employees didn't put up their money, their assets, their collateral, their time. The employees take no risk. You show up, you do the job, you get fired, you move to another job, whereas the entrepreneur takes all the risk. And that's why they get the big bucks. But now we're seeing, whenever the risk part comes in, the government comes in to rescue. So no, the FDIC cap. So if you had 30 million in Silicon, thanks to Biden, you get to 30 million. The government will cover your deposit in full.
When was that reported?
I was so focused on Michael Hudson proving my point about crypto that maybe I misheard what he said about this bank thing. Because by the way, check the little video that I did this morning if you haven't seen it, because Michael Hudson confirmed my point about crypto, that is libertarianism's response to socialism. But I thought he was saying that the bank was not going to be saved because the elite who themselves already took out their money and were going to let it. His point was that the elite who use these banks to house money and to pool and to do all their chicanery had seen that this bank was not going to be able to provide for them what they needed anymore, and they took their money out, and that's what led the bank ultimately collapsing. But anyway, maybe I don't profess to know exactly what's happening with this particular issue, so I'll leave it there. I was just glad Hudson was agreeing with me.
Yeah, I mean, it's everywhere. I actually was reading the
no, I hadn't seen this, so this is good. Okay, yeah, good.
But yeah, they lifted cap on insured deposits, and
I love it.
Yeah, so it's but prior to 2008 it was only $100,000. Man, I got to move my money around. So anyway, yeah, Biden has lifted the cap.
You definitely do now with this BPM salary. You definitely can't.
I can't, man.
You're not in good shape.
If my bank fails, I'm not gonna get all my scratch back. But anyway, yeah. So they lifted the cap, which actually remember.
Hold my bad, El Chuncho Radical. Roland Martin was on the Breakfast Club this week. Did you all know that?
No.
Are we all getting fined this if we miss that?
I don't know nothing about that.
Oh my God.
Does the Breakfast Club still exist?
Yes, it's the most important show on any network, on any platform. Come on, Diallo, stop playing.
No, I only
they got
Angela Lee.
They got a rotating host.
Dissing each other.
No, they got she's not there anymore. So there's a rotating host that come in every now and then that replace Angela. So maybe you can even go there and replace her one day, Diallo, if you want. You could just
I think people would be more receptive to my message, less likely to gang up on me.
But Roland Martin did take a shot at us this week.
Go to where I'm welcome.
Roland Martin did take a shot at us.
I don't know if you heard that.
Man, could you man, please get your internets and sounds together. Why are we lagging and all this?
I'm not. I'm good over here.
Geechee. Emma, I didn't abandon the Discord. I just can't keep up with everything. There's so much. It's too much. It's not.
What did he say about BPM?
Roland Martin. Somebody had tweeted at him and called him a snitch, associating our banning with him, and then he wrote back and called this person a dumbass, and said that he doesn't know who we are. So I hold on here. I'm gonna pull it up right here. Which I thought was hostile. I just thought that was hostile. Why all that? So this is somebody had tweeted here and said, I bet that it was Roland Martin. Oh, actually, he wasn't even tagged. So Roland just found this? Because then Roland Martin said, "You're a dumbass. I don't know or care who these people are."
Man.
And then this King Mike said, "Not only do you know who these people are, we know you search the name on social media for negative comments. You search your name on social media." I'm not mad at that. So I had responded here. I said, while not accusing you, Roland Martin, it seems odd. It seems an odd claim to proudly or falsely claim that you don't know or have care for Black Power media. Given your interest in Black media and censorship, one might think you would be covering the story rather than championing ignorance of it. So, anyway. Oh, and that's just an ad for a game.
That was an awfully diplomatic response.
Yeah, I think I don't want to. Yeah, I think I don't like when I get.
I understand.
Well, not yeah. I'm scared of Roland Martin, but just in general, I don't.
He's about to take down all these corporations. You don't want to get on that list.
No, I'm scared. But I don't. You know what it is? It's bartending made me drink less, and I feel like. In other words, whenever I step back and watch how some people behave when I'm not involved, it makes me regret some of my other behavior or decisions. So when you're sober and watching other people be drunk, it's like, yeah, I need to drink less. And when I'm not involved in some of these Twitter beefs and all this stuff, and I just see how certain people behave, and I'm like, and I know how smart they are, and I know how even in some cases decent they are, I'm like, I don't want to be. So I'm not, and to be out here just calling people dumbasses and stuff like that, I'm not interested in that. So anyway, I think
I don't have a problem with calling people dumbasses, but when they're actually being dumbasses, but I think that is a valid speculation because we know how people, again, I think it was the incel reactionaries from the white left, which aren't really the white reactionaries. They tend to play those banning games and those, coordinated reporting of sites and shit. They tend to play those games more than us. So.
Man, I had to look up incel a couple years ago. I was like, what is this incel? Involuntarily celibate. That's how I was until I was 18.
Yeah. Well, actually,
I was involuntary. I was like, I'm trying. No, I'm just playing. But I'm like, man, damn. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, well, anyway, yeah, I think it came from those folks more so.
Well, yeah, no. I think, yeah, I think it. Yeah, I have my own whatever. But anyway,
yeah, I have my own independent investigation,
and
yeah, we all have our theories. Yeah, it could have been an inside job.
Oh, damn.
Somebody felt like they weren't given enough opportunity to speak. And
is that what it was?
That's a lot of times, infiltration. Somebody been talking.
What's my man's name from Belly? I'm gonna drop a dime on.
Yeah, I'm gonna drop a dime. I'm just saying.
Geechee was like, they don't let me speak.
All right, nobody talking. And nobody get to say nothing. If I can't talk, none of us is talk. I didn't say nobody's name.
I mean, it also could have been people who make you look over there, and they create diversions for you to look at. So it's possible.
Meryl McCullough's somebody was Meryl McCulloughing.
Yeah.
That's
shit! Look at the ghost.
So anyway, see, that's what happens. And now we starting to tear up and starting to take to our own allies. That's how it happens. That's how it has begun.
Anthony D. Oh man, Anthony D. The book is not dropped. Not because of me. I had my manuscript in on time, New Year's Eve. So I appreciate you. I'm assuming that's what you're talking about, but I appreciate you. Our dear brother Hamilton. Is he's an important dude. He's just got a lot on his plate.
He didn't come through. He didn't come through.
It's
coming on the way.
We waiting. It's on its way. It's worth the wait. You know what I mean? No pressure, no drama. But it's not me. We just, yeah. He has earned his liberation and ability to be on his own schedule. I don't know, man. We working on it. Yeah. Anyway, so what else, fellas? Anything else you want to? We coming up on 10 o'clock. You want to let us know about anything? You want to get into anything? We didn't beef this week, Diallo, so people gonna be disappointed. The numbers gonna be down.
Beef. I'm never beef.
Not beef. You know what I'm saying.
I'm just listen. Y'all come for me. I don't even be doing nothing. That's why I'm glad this is recorded for people to follow that. I'm happy to announce Skip Coon will be joining Black Power Media and be co-hosting the Rational Radical show on every first and third.
Is he really doing that?
Yeah.
That's what's up.
Every first and third Wednesday of the month. He'll be on the Rational. I'm not sure why he's not particularly a rational.
That's what I was gonna ask. I was gonna ask
which one
y'all are rational.
I guess he's the radical. I'm rational. I guess we don't have to split it in half, but it's all good. Maybe I can convert him, or he gonna convert me. But either way, I'm just happy to have an opportunity for some civil discourse as opposed to what happens here on Friday mornings.
Yeah, it's terrible. Geechee, anything you want to let us know about?
Anything you want to confess to?
Nothing at all. Nothing at all.
Okay.
Nothing at all.
All right. What?
All right. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and try to figure out what's going on with this StreamYard thing because this was whack. I don't like being. I don't like having to watch. It is weird.
Someone did a mention earlier.
Oh wow! There go the number. Look, it just came back.
Yeah.
Look, did you see that?
Yeah, I did it.
All I had to do was say StreamYard 3 times and it showed up. Like Candyman.
Yeah.
That was wild.
And my chat working now too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Everything just the numbers popped up, the chat popped up. I definitely appreciate all the people coming through, all the remixers who came through here live, and those who will see this later. Definitely appreciate you. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and have the bell link clicked at least, so that you don't miss when things happen and we go live, etc. and so forth. Yeah. Thank you very much. Back in the chat, back at it. The feds messing with the chat. Yeah. Thank you for the compliment and the feedback. And just heard also from Dev, I believe, who is now going by Musa, and they're going to be coming back at some point to talk about Rodney as well. I believe Coco, we got to schedule something. Didn't we have some? I got to get caught up. But anyway, stay tuned. Make sure you know there's a lot coming and happening around these parts. And yeah, go ahead.
I just want to speak to one comment.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Earlier in the broadcast, it's not that I dismiss black men's feelings. It's just that we are alpha sigma males. We shouldn't have no feelings, no heart. Do you don't listen to 21 Savage? We shouldn't have no heart.
Whose feelings did you dismiss?
Black man's.
When?
Who knows? I don't know.
Oh, okay. Oh, my bad. Oh, okay.
Not that I did it, because like I said, we supposed to have no heart. You know, 21. So yeah. I thought that was interesting. And I forgot, being that I radiate all this gynocentric energy. It's my gynocentrism. I'm working on it.
I have never been more flattered by an insult ever. What is the issue? Centering my life around, anyway.
Yeah, I think I may have to start a gynocentrism support group, recovery. Gyno Anonymous. GA Gyno Anonymous group.
Somebody made a comment. The one thing I did see when they made a couple of comments about the pictures of Russell Wilson looking all like puppy dogish or whatever, or I don't know, sublimated in some way to Ciara. I was like, what is that part? Whatever else I thought about the whole thing, I was like, what is the issue with that? Like,
now that
like, why wouldn't I? Why would
they've given up on Russell? Now they want to send in SEAL Team 6 to rescue Rihanna's husband ASAP.
Wow.
ASAP, they are, I think the Manosphere has given up on Russell. He's a lost cause, but I think they believe that ASAP can be rescued. And you notice that you haven't seen the new photo of ASAP walking in front of Rihanna, so he's already redeemed.
They did it. They did. I think did they really do that?
I think that's weird.
Yeah,
I think that weird.
She's carrying the baby.
Because wasn't Russell celebrated before for being like the first rich black man to leave a white woman for a black woman? Wasn't he already? He was celebrated for that at one point, right?
Really?
Oh, I don't remember that. He did that.
Yeah, he came into the league with a white woman, white wife, and then he upgraded to a black woman. So I thought the Manosphere loved him at one point.
I don't know. I mean, there's no.
I've never seen the Manosphere. Well, there's this weird rhetoric about, well, I ain't even gonna get into it. I'm in enough trouble. I want to be down like Brandy. I want to be down. Wait
a minute. Walter,
hey,
wait a minute. Walter's back. Hold up, Walter, you've been around. You've been trolling my site and show for so long. Why do you come through with this lie? When did I
say you like Top Gun?
I said it was, what did I say about it? I said it was very good propaganda. I did a whole 2 shows about and I even did a whole the E3 and below shows about what the real Top Gun movie should be about. or what movie they would never tell. What is he talking about? All I ever said, I said it was well done, but that it was propaganda. I mean, it was well done propaganda. Oh man, Walter be lying on me. That's frustrating, man. That's frustrating. Thank you, ZZ Lion Dad. Great way to bring in the weekend. Peace and much love to you guys and the people in the chat. Thank you, ZZ Lion Dad. Oh man. Yeah, I needed that. Walter came in the chat loud, lying. He was like, cannonball. Oh my God, that's funny. Anyway, what else? Oh, now that the chat's working, this is what's up, Kalanji? So look, people, just real quick. Yeah, go ahead. Well, just real quick. Let me just real quick, just to remind everybody, come on out if you can tomorrow, Saturday, if you're in DC, check PSL answers pages for the stream. If you can't be, Jackie Lukman is going to be a featured speaker among many others. So you know, check it out. Support the anti-war movement and actual left coalitions. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Look, Ricky says show up. So you have no choice. That's the rules.
I hope
that's what you heard. You heard that straight from the real
Coach's top thought leader.
My bad. Go ahead, Diallo.
I just pray it doesn't descend into no January 6th type business where they get to smearing feces on the walls like them white folks, Trump supporters.
Oh no, man. Ugh. Ugh.
Yeah. We don't go down like that. It's interesting to see how the right wing is going to spin that, since they said that January 6th. Did you guys follow the Tucker Carlson attempt to say that the January 6th was a peaceful rally?
Oh no, I didn't.
Oh, y'all don't watch the right. But, well, they're totally already rewriting the history of January 6th. The patriots who were concerned about, you know, election integrity, and they are already rewriting that history before our very eyes.
Hey, we don't talk about elections around here on BPM because we know what happens when you start talking about elections around here. So I don't want anybody. We get time off. We get put in time out.
If you in Chicago, vote Brandon Johnson. I think Jamal Green, a local political activist here, black political activist, has showed his hand supporting Paul Vallis. You know, the overtly racist and fascist Paul Vallis, and so. It was really weird to me to see people celebrating the loss, the Lori Lightfoot's loss. Justifiable. She shouldn't have won that election, but the person who's slated to replace her is 10 times worse. And black people are celebrating the fact that one politician is leaving and a much worse administration has the strongest potential to come in. So get out there and vote.
Good point.
Black Chicago in the Chicago mayoral runoff, and we still have some aldermen that are also in the runoff as well. So,
and my Hickory Ridge Village Board supporters, we got about a month to get the vote out. Get your boy elected. The revolution starts right here, and this is my campaign slogan. Bam. No, but I actually think you make a really good point about the Lori Lightfoot point. Yeah, policy, not personality. Right on. And that's going to be my that's my campaign slogan, because I'm like I'm not doing no babies, what do they kiss the babies, and I'm not doing none of that.
Do what you got to do.
No, this is the policy platform. Policy, not person. You just bigged up the comment, Diallo. That's it. Vote for this.
But I mean, hey, listen, I tell you, like on that camera, don't come at me with that old righteous. You got to do what you got to do to get your foot in the door. You better kiss some babies and show pictures of you and your family, you know, pretend to love your wife and daughters, like show the family, man. You don't know how to, man. Come on, let's run this campaign.
Diallo, when you bringing Guru Diallo to EYL for April Fool's, Petty Officer Ball versus Guru Diallo April Fool's skit? G is the moderator, mediator.
Diallo is out there getting money. You know, he's out there popping bottles with models. He's on yachts, man. He can't be just, you know, tied down.
No, what we need is we need Guru Diallo and Ice Cold Carter. We need a warrior class EYL mashup. And that's what I need to see. We need Guru Diallo meets Ice Cold Carter on one of these episodes. That's going to be, you know what? I'm going to start working on that. I'm going to see if I can put that together.
Guru Diallo's out there generating wealth for the people by enriching himself. And then the radio frequency of my personal wealth gives wealth energy to other. The Guru Diallo is out. You know, he's out.
Baba Balogun.
Big thanks.
There it is. Let's make it happen. That's what we need. The EYL warrior class mashup. Guru meets Ice Cold Carter. You know. Man, there was one other thing that I thought I was going to bring up, but I just lost it. That's why I got to write it down. So anyway, shout out to everybody for coming through. Shout out to the co-hosts, to our crew here, and big shout out to Eugene Puryear for coming through. And we will catch you next time here at Earn Your Liberation. And again, throughout the platform, make sure you all signed up, and bell checked, and all that kind of stuff, so you don't miss anything. Speaking of which, Warrior class is back tomorrow. Do your algorithmic duty. Exactly. Well said. Right on. All the different ways to support, you know, simple is just go to blackpowermedia.org. But of course, any way you can do it, we happily accept that. And fellas, peace if you're willing to fight for it. Like Fred Hampton used to say. Catch you all next time right here at Black Power Media, EYL. Peace.